Oh, now let's come to Skyroot story. Now that we've set the premise for what's happening in space and why it's so exciting, I want to understand. Bro, in 2018, you started this company when it was illegal to launch rockets in India. Privatization had not even happened in 2018 in this particular industry. And you left your job at ISRO
Yeah.
to launch a company which the government also never intended to exist. How does that make any sense?
I had ambitions to start a company from childhood, and then I went into IIT. IIT there was in 2007 to 12. I did both my bachelor's and master's there, and then there was a lot of entrepreneurial vibe somehow. Probably that's where the Flipkarts of the world are starting. I wanted to be like, I was a mechanical engineer. I wanted to work on the toughest machine built by humans, and for me, hands down, it's a rocket. And then I was really inspired by ISRO. We Indians build our own rockets. Only 5-6 countries in the world have that capability, and we launch it regularly. We have like PSLV, GSLV, LVM3. You have so many rockets which we are building from scratch from India, and we are launching, right? So this I was really inspired, and then ISRO came to campus. I think one of the early times it has come to campus. It rarely comes to campus. And then I thought, like, this is where I need to go. I just made up my mind. I didn't sit for any placements, and I luckily got selected, and ISRO. I became a scientist at ISRO, and I still remember like the first day I entered the ISRO factory. So massive hunger with large rocket stages, and it really got goosebumps. And this is where I need to be. And though I got a degree from IIT, but I really felt that I became an engineer after joining ISRO. It's like when you actually do hardcore engineering work, by yourself, is really when you graduate as an engineer, right? So I was so really so engrossed. I learned everything I could. How rockets are built, what people are doing across the world, why we are using this technology, why not this technology, what is the evolution of technology, what will be 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, what was it in 1960s. In fact, at a point of time, I wanted to settle at ISRO, because settle and retire at ISRO, which most people do. 99.99% of the people who join ISRO retire at ISRO.
But what makes ISRO so special?
I mean, it's probably the only deep engineering, company in India, which is which does hardcore tech development, fundamentally, everything from scratch from India. And then there's a lot of pride associated with it, right? You launch to the moon, there's Mars, you launch to Mars. India became the first, ISRO made India the first country in the world to reach Mars orbit in the very first attempt. We first country in the world who landed a spacecraft close to the surface of the south pole of the moon. We went to the sun. We are the most frugal space program in the world. We went to Mars at less than the budget of the movie Martian. So that's the achievements which we have done in a very modest setting. If you see the history of the Indian space program, we started in a very small, a fishing village in Tumba. I had a very great opportunity to work in that place at the time at ISRO. And then from there, a small church, Dr. Vikram Sarvai spawned a small team there. And then brought people from abroad. Actually, that time he brought people from who studied in Purdue University and all, PhDs, etc. Brought them. And then they started, the initial set of scientists started building rockets. They started launching on the shores of Tumba, small rockets. And then now they scaled to, we scaled as a space program to go to, moon, Mars, sun. And now we're going to launch our own astronauts into orbit. It is a phenomenal journey of India's, space program.
What are the values that Vikram Sarabhai instilled in ISRO, which makes ISRO so special that they're able to launch a rocket at less than the cost of a Hollywood movie?
Yeah, I think one thing is that scientific temper.
What do you mean by that?
It's the space is like brutal. I told you the environment is so brutal that anything can go wrong. A small bolt, can make a whole rocket fail. It's so expensive that it has to work every time perfectly. It's like the hardest engineering, one of the hardest engineering challenges, right? So what Dr. Sarabhai has brought in, that great culture of scientific temper, or like the engineering temperament, the attention to details in every people. Very people in ISRO are like highest levels of integrity. For example, there's something wrong, it's highlighted, it is discussed widely, there is a forum for open discussion, it's celebrated, even if something fails, it's accepted, it's okay, it's part of the development process. Keep doing it again and again. And then that national spirit, so that we have to do for the country, we have to take forward the country, we have to be among the best in the world, because we know that resources are very less. For example, the entire budget of ISRO so far, all cumulatively add together, is less than 1 year budget of NASA.
That's amazing. And if your job was so good at ISRO, why did you leave and start Skyroot?
In fact, I was a part of the team, where like the largest rocket of India was being developed. This is a rocket. I have a very personal connection with this. So I was part of the team. Is a team which was involved in the development of this rocket, and then I was part of these first two missions, successful missions. Now like it's turning into the workhorse for the country. Almost every mission so far was successful. And the same rocket which launched the spacecraft which landed near the south pole of the moon, first time in the world. And very proud to be associated, with this rocket. I wanted to retire there, but then like one fine, like a lightning strike, so it came like one strike. Why can't we build a rocket company from India? Because I had entrepreneurial ambitions, and rocket tech is my calling, right? So it's like a marriage of two passions, and then suddenly felt like this is where my calling is. And then like, of course, the moment I got that thought, I was literally jerked, saying that it's very difficult, it's not possible, like for the reasons we told, because there's no policy in India which enables this, and there is no investment which is happening is unprecedented. There's no fund which has a thesis for space, right? And then there is no talent in the private sector, right? You have to build a lot of things from scratch, right? So there's a lot of things which the odds of it looks like, but then that odds of failures seem very high, odds of success seem very low. But then I felt like that is the opportunity. When everything is there in a platter, right? Building a rocket company is far easier. When nothing is there, that's when you have to take the first step. Right, we took that initial steps. Then we became the first company which is, signed an MOU with ISRO, where we got access to all the test facilities once the policy was announced.
Oh wow!
And policy was announced in 2-3 years. I thought it'll take 10 years. I was like all in. Let it take 10 years. We'll persist and make some progress. Of course, you can build a rocket, but you can't launch a rocket. So you can build it.
So you thought of just building it?
Yeah, building
with
it,
the hope
waiting
that the government will allow you to launch it.
And also, it's a chicken and egg problem. Unless you actually build the momentum. What is the incentive of the government to open up the sector? When there is no commerce which is happening, there's no benefits which can come. So today, like, $600 million is invested in private space just mostly in the last 2-3 years. And then there are like at least 5,000 plus employees. High tech employment is being generated in the entire country in the space sector. Just for you, just imagine how next 10 years will look like.
If this clip gave you value, please subscribe to this channel so that we can keep bringing you game-changing business insights.